You know that feeling when everything seems perfect? When life feels like it's finally falling into place? That's exactly how I felt on the morning of my son's 7th birthday. My name is Sarah, and I thought I had it all figured out. A loving husband, a beautiful son, and a sister who was my best friend. But sometimes, the people closest to you are the ones hiding the darkest secrets. It was a Saturday morning in late September, the kind of day where the sunlight filters through the windows just right, making everything feel warm and hopeful. I was in the kitchen, preparing cupcakes for Ethan's birthday party, chocolate with rainbow sprinkles, his favorite. My husband, Mark, was setting up decorations in the backyard, those colorful balloons that kids go crazy for. And my sister, Claire, had promised to come early to help with the final touches. Claire and I had always been close. Growing up, we shared everything: secrets, clothes, dreams. She was 3 years younger than me, and I'd always felt protective of her. When our parents passed away in a car accident 5 years ago, we became even closer. We only had each other, or so I thought. The doorbell rang around noon. Claire walked in with her usual bright smile, carrying a huge gift wrapped in shiny blue paper. Ethan's eyes lit up the moment he saw her. "Aunt Claire," he shouted, running into her arms. She lifted him up and spun him around, both of them laughing. It was a beautiful moment, one I'd remember for very different reasons later. "Hey, sis," she said, walking over to hug me. "Need any help?" "Always," I replied, handing her a piping bag filled with frosting. You know how chaotic these parties get. We worked side by side, just like we'd done countless times before. But there was something different that day. Something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Claire seemed distracted. She kept checking her phone, her smile fading whenever she looked at the screen. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was stressed about work. By 2 o'clock, the backyard was filled with kids running around, parents chatting, and the sound of laughter everywhere. Mark was playing the role of the perfect dad, organizing games and making sure everyone had drinks. He caught my eye from across the yard and winked. I smiled back, feeling grateful. Grateful for this life we'd built together. But gratitude has a way of blinding you to the truth. The party was in full swing when someone suggested we play a game. "Truth or dare," one of the kids yelled. The adults laughed, and someone jokingly said, "Let's make it interesting." Adults version. Everyone chuckled, thinking it was harmless fun, just a silly game to entertain the crowd. Claire's face went pale. I noticed it immediately. She gripped her wine glass tighter, her knuckles turning white. "I don't think that's a good idea," she said quietly, but her voice was drowned out by the excited chatter. Mark laughed it off. "Come on, it's just for fun. What's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen?" Those words would haunt me. The game started innocently enough. Someone dared my neighbor to sing a song. Another person admitted to a childhood prank. Everyone was laughing, relaxed, enjoying the moment. Then it was Ethan's turn, my sweet, innocent 7-year-old boy. "Ethan, truth or dare?" Mark asked, ruffling his hair. "Truth," Ethan giggled, his face covered in chocolate frosting. "Okay. Buddy," Mark said playfully, "tell us something funny you heard grown-ups say." The crowd leaned in, expecting something cute. Kids always repeat the funniest things at the worst times. But what came out of Ethan's mouth wasn't funny. It was devastating. Ethan looked around, his innocent eyes sparkling with excitement. "Oh, I know. I heard Aunt Claire tell Daddy on the phone that she loves him more than Mommy does." Time stopped. The laughter died. The music seemed to fade into the background. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Every eye in the yard turned to look at me, then at Mark, then at Claire. Claire's wine glass slipped from her hand. It shattered on the concrete patio, red wine spreading like blood across the ground. Her face drained of all color. "Ethan, sweetie, you misunderstood," she stammered, but her voice cracked. Mark stood frozen, his face a mixture of shock and guilt. He didn't deny it. He didn't laugh it off. He didn't even look at me. And in that silence, I knew. I knew everything. My hands started shaking. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, their pity, their awkwardness, their whispers already forming. But I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just stood there, watching my entire world crumble in front of 30 people. "Sarah," Mark finally said, taking a step toward me. "Don't." My voice came out colder than I'd ever heard it. "Don't you dare come near me right now." Claire started crying, actual tears streaming down her face. "Sarah, please, let me explain. It's not what you think." "Not what I think?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. My 7-year-old son just told me that my sister and my husband are having an affair. What exactly am I supposed to think? The guests started gathering their things, mumbling excuses about needing to leave. Within minutes, our backyard was empty, except for me, Mark, Claire, and Ethan, who was now crying because he realized he'd said something wrong. I picked up Ethan, holding him close. It's okay, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. Go inside and watch your cartoons, okay? He nodded, wiping his tears, and ran inside. Then I turned to face them. My husband of 9 years. My sister. My only family. The two people I trusted most in the world. How long? I asked quietly. Claire sobbed harder. Sarah, please. How long? I screamed, my voice breaking. Mark finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of them laughing behind my back. Half a year of me being the fool. Get out, I said, my voice eerily calm now. Both of you, get out of my house. Now. Sarah, we need to talk about this, Mark pleaded. There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. She made her choice. Now I'm making mine. Get out. Claire reached for my hand. Please, you're my sister. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. I yanked my hand away. Things don't just happen, Claire. You don't accidentally sleep with your sister's husband. You don't accidentally destroy a family. You chose this. Both of you. They left. Mark grabbed his keys, and Claire followed him like a lost puppy. I watched them drive away together. Of course, they left together. Why wouldn't they? I stood in that empty backyard, surrounded by deflated balloons and half-eaten cake, and I made myself a promise. They wanted to break me? They wanted to destroy everything I'd built? Fine, but I wouldn't just survive this. I would make sure they regretted every single moment of their betrayal. The next few days were the hardest of my life. I barely slept, barely ate. Ethan kept asking why Daddy wasn't coming home, and I didn't know what to tell him. How do you explain betrayal to a 7-year-old? Mark kept calling, texting, begging to talk. Claire sent me dozens of messages, each one more desperate than the last. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. It was a mistake. I love you, sis. I ignored them all. But I wasn't sitting around crying. No, I was planning. See, here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just break your heart, it opens your eyes. Suddenly, you start seeing things you missed before. The late-night phone calls Mark claimed were work, the times Claire canceled plans last minute, the way they'd look at each other when they thought I wasn't watching. I'd been so blind, so trusting, but not anymore. I started with research. I contacted a lawyer, a fierce woman named Rebecca, who specialized in difficult divorce cases. She looked at my situation and smiled. Not a kind smile. A warrior's smile. They made this too easy, she said, reviewing the evidence I'd gathered. Text messages I recovered from Mark's laptop. Photos Claire had carelessly posted on social media, deleted but not permanently. Financial records showing Mark had been paying for a hotel room twice a week for months. We're going to take him for everything, Rebecca said. The house, custody, support, everything. But I wanted more than that. Money and custody wouldn't heal the wound they'd created. I needed them to feel what I felt. That deep, crushing sense of betrayal. That's when I remembered something. Claire worked as a marketing manager at a prestigious firm, a firm that prided itself on family values and ethical behavior. Her boss, Mr. Harrison, was a traditional man who believed in loyalty and integrity above all else. And Mark? Mark worked at his father's company. His father, Richard, was a stern man who'd built his business on principles of honor and trust. Richard had always liked me, treated me like his own daughter. I made my calls. First, I contacted Mr. Harrison. I thought you should know, I said calmly, that Claire has been having an affair with a married man. My husband. While I was home taking care of our son, she was destroying our family. I understand your company values integrity, and I thought you'd want to know who you're trusting with your brand's reputation. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, thank you for bringing this to my attention, Sarah. I'm deeply sorry for what you're going through. Next, I called Richard. This conversation was harder. I genuinely cared about Mark's father, but he deserved to know the truth. Richard, I need to tell you something about Mark. I explained everything. The affair, the lies, the betrayal. By the end, Richard's voice was shaking with anger. I raised him better than this, he said quietly. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I'll handle this. But I wasn't done. Not even close. The fallout was swift and brutal. Within a week, Claire was called into her boss's office. She was given a choice: resign quietly or be terminated for conduct unbecoming of the company's values. She chose to resign, but the damage was done. Word spreads fast in professional circles. Her reputation was destroyed. Mark faced his own reckoning. Richard called him into the office and, in front of the entire board, announced that Mark was being removed from his position as vice president. My son has proven he lacks the integrity required to lead this company, Richard said, his voice cold and disappointed. Mark was demoted to a basic position, his salary cut by more than half. But here's where it gets interesting. Mark tried to move in with Claire, assuming they'd face this storm together. After all, they'd given up everything for each other, right? Surely their love would conquer all? Claire said no. Apparently, when the fantasy became reality, when there was no more sneaking around, no more thrill of the forbidden, Claire realized something. She didn't actually love Mark. She'd been caught up in the excitement, the attention, the drama, but when it came down to actually building a life with him, she wanted nothing to do with it. Mark called me, broken and desperate. Sarah, I made a terrible mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. Please, can we talk? Talk? I replied, my voice ice cold. You want to talk now? After you destroyed our family? After you threw away 9 years for a cheap thrill with my sister? It wasn't like that. Save it, Mark. You made your bed. Now lie in it. Alone. I hung up and blocked his number. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Rebecca had built an airtight case. Mark's affair, the evidence, his diminished financial situation, all of it worked in my favor. The judge awarded me full custody of Ethan, the house, and substantial support payments. Mark was left with supervised visitation rights and a pile of debt. Claire tried to reach out one last time. She showed up at my door late one night, mascara running down her face, looking like she hadn't slept in weeks. Sarah, please, she begged. I've lost everything. My job, my reputation, my family. I have nothing left. I stood in the doorway, unmoved. You had everything, Claire. You had a sister who would have done anything for you, a nephew who loved you, a family. But you threw it all away for what? A few months of sneaking around with my husband? Was it worth it? No, she sobbed. It wasn't. I was stupid and selfish and I hate myself for it. Good? I said simply. Because I want you to remember this feeling. I want you to remember it every single day for the rest of your life. You didn't just betray me. You destroyed yourself. I closed the door, and I never spoke to her again. 6 months later, I stood in my backyard again. The same backyard where my world had fallen apart. But this time, it was different. Ethan was running around with his friends, laughing and happy. He'd adjusted better than I'd expected. Kids are resilient like that. He saw Mark every other weekend, but our home was peaceful now, stable, honest. I'd started my own business, a small consulting firm that was already growing beyond my expectations. Turns out, when you channel pain into purpose, amazing things can happen. I'd also reconnected with old friends, people I'd lost touch with during my marriage. I realized how isolated I'd become, how much I'd sacrificed without even noticing. But not anymore. I was building a new life, a better life. Did I forgive them? No. Forgiveness isn't always necessary for healing. Some betrayals are too deep, too calculated. Mark and Claire made deliberate choices every single day for 6 months. They chose to lie, to sneak, to destroy. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern of behavior. But I did let go of the anger. Because holding on to that rage would only poison me, not them. They were already living with the consequences of their actions. Mark lost his career, his family, and his self-respect. Claire lost her sister, her job, and any chance at rebuilding her reputation. They destroyed each other in the end, without me having to do much at all. The truth is, betrayal reveals character. Not just the character of those who betray you, but your own character and how you respond. I could have spiraled into bitterness and self-destruction. Many people would understand if I had. But instead, I chose to rise. I learned that you can't control other people's choices. You can't prevent betrayal by loving someone hard enough or being good enough or loyal enough. Some people will betray you no matter what you do. But you can control your response. You can choose not to let their darkness dim your light. As I watched Ethan blow out his birthday candles, making a wish with his eyes squeezed shut tight, I made my own wish. Not for revenge anymore, That chapter was closed. I wished for peace, for healing, for the strength to keep building this new life we'd created. The moral of my story? Betrayal will break you, but it doesn't have to destroy you. Sometimes the people you trust most will stab you in the back. And when they do, you have two choices. You can let it define you, or you can let it refine you. I chose to be refined, to be stronger, to be wiser, to be free, because the best revenge isn't making them suffer. The best revenge is building a life so beautiful, so peaceful, so full of genuine love and joy, that their betrayal becomes nothing more than a footnote in your story. They thought they would break me. Instead, they freed me. And that's real victory.